Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the episode today, we have Angelo Valenti. Angelo, welcome.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
It is great to have you. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Well, I'm a consulting psychologist in Nashville, Tennessee. I work with businesses, helping them to hire the right people. I develop the talent that organizations have, uh, coach leaders, coach aspiring leaders, and also coach people who want to live their best personal and professional lives and maybe find a little more joy and happiness in their life.
A very worthy topic. Thank you for the introduction. For whatever reason, I always ask this with two people who have psychology expertise, which is what are perhaps one of the more interesting things that you've learned about the human being, given your expertise in psychology?
Well, one of the most interesting things I've learned is that um, people care more about themselves than they do about anybody else. If you think people care about you, they may care about you, but they care about themselves more, and they operate according to their own self-interest.
Okay. Well, I can sort of understand why you would think that. Is that useful from the perspective of perhaps a worrier thinking, what is this person thinking about me? And in reality, they're actually not thinking about you, they're thinking about themselves. Is that kind of where you were
That's
going?
absolutely. If you're thinking that other people are basing decisions about their life on what you think, or basing decisions about your life on what they think, you're going to be in for disappointment because it's just not the way it is. People are
And
just concerned about their own.
were you in a bit of a before and after with that piece of information? So have you considered yourself to be a warrior previously, and now you're able to kind of use that piece of information with your in your own life?
I've never really been a worrier, but I have been in the past concerned or thinking about what other people think of me. I was at a point in my life and a point in my career where I felt like I had to look the right way, talk the right way, act the right way, in order to make the kind of impression that I wanted to make. And at a certain point, I realized people people are going to be if people are going to be drawn to you, if a person's going to be drawn to you, they're going to be drawn to you really regardless of how you look, what you do, what you say. And if people are going to be put off by you, they're going to be put off by you regardless. So some people are going to like you no matter what you do. Some people aren't going to like you no matter what you do. So you might as well just be yourself.
Because everyone else is already taken, right?
Right? Oh, that's right. That's is that Oscar Wilde? Yeah, good.
So, I love the book title. The book is You're Making This Way Too Hard. Find Your Easy Way to Enjoy Life. Um, can you tell me about the premise of the book? Who's it for, and why did you write it?
Well, I wrote the book because in my coaching and in my consulting, I saw so many people who had what society considers to be success, the trappings of success, the good job, good family, good, beautiful home, cars, whatever, vacations, all the things that people think lead to success, but they just weren't happy. They weren't enjoying their life. So I kind of wrote the book with the idea of maybe it's time to take a step back and figure out what's really important to you in your life. And I think one of the things that causes, you mentioned worry earlier. One of the things that I think causes people to stress, worry, uh, doubt their self-worth is social media. We spend so much time on social media watching other people's scripted, artificial, fake posts that we think are real if we're not careful. and we don't measure up. And of course, we can't measure up because, you know, they might have taken 50 or 100 takes to get the shot they want, and you're sitting there in your couch watching TV, eating Fritos or whatever it is. So you can't possibly measure up, and that causes you to feel that you're not worthy because you're not them. And the idea is not to be them. The idea is just to be yourself and be comfortable with yourself. And I really, excuse me, I describe the book not as a self-help book, but as a self-acceptance book.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's probably needed. My follow-up would be, do you think that there's been a noticeable difference in what I refer to as well-being, a detrimental impact due to social media in that time frame?
Absolutely. I think if you look at the statistics, I'm not sure about the statistics in the UK, but in the United States, the second leading cause of death among teenagers is suicide. And I don't think that 40 or 50 years ago that was the case. I think people have, I mean, you can harass a person on social media. You can say terrible things about them, say terrible things to them, and you can often hide behind the mask of anonymity where people who you don't even know and they don't know you are having an outsized influence on your life. Could be good, but usually not so good. So I do think, you know, social media has caused divorces, it's caused depression, anxiety. Uh, so I think yes, uh, if people take social media too seriously, can have a really detrimental effect on them. If you look at
And
it as, go ahead,
from
sorry.
a psychologist perspective, why is it so bad for human beings?
It's so bad because it's fake. It's propaganda. And I use that in the broadest sense of the word. It's not grounded in reality. Or it's kind of encouraging people to look outside of themselves for validation or outside of themselves for confirmation of their worth. And uh, I think if people were more introspective and listened to more to the voices and the feelings inside themselves, and really thought about themselves and what their goals are, what their aspirations are, what their worldview is, they'd be much better off than seeking that from some outside source.
Yeah, I think it is easy to look at the world around you and base your goals off of externalities rather than, going within. Is there, in terms of the solution, do you think there is one? And if so, what, other than perhaps more being more mindful about yourself, what would the solutions be?
Well, the solutions are, it depends on the person, how you're going to approach it. Obviously, it's an individual decision. But I think if you're insisting on staying connected, uh, we use social media for an example, start looking at it as entertainment and not information or not pop psychology or not something else. It's just like TV. It's just like the radio. It's entertainment. Uh, Social media started by, people posting what they ate for dinner and cute cat videos, and it's kind of expanded from there. It's exploded, really. Um, some might say it's metastasized, maybe. Um, if you if people would just start taking care of themselves in the simplest of ways, the first thing you can do to take care of yourself is to make sure that you're in as good physical condition as you can get in. Not everybody can get in great physical condition, and I understand that some people have health challenges which they have to deal with, but everybody can get in a little bit better physical condition than they are right now. Maybe that's walking a little bit more. Maybe that's cutting back on fast food or cutting back on junk food or just not eating so much. Maybe do some meditation, whatever it might be for that person. But just think about taking care of yourself physically. One of the things that I think is really important is the simple thing, take a nap in the afternoon. Take a 30-minute nap in the afternoon. Studies have shown that that really boosts productivity and boosts your sense of well-being. It's really good for you. A lot of cultures, a nap is built into their culture, an afternoon nap, and not so much here in the States. Um, but I think it's a great thing that people can do. Uh, so that just the self-care is the first step. And the second step is self-love. And the way to develop self-love is to recognize your good qualities. We're often bombarded from our friends, family, work with criticisms or statements that would indicate that we don't measure up or we're not worthy or we're not good enough. You get enough of that from, again, social media. But if you start to recognize your own self-worth, everybody has terrific qualities about themselves, but they just maybe they don't believe it about themselves, or maybe they don't bring those qualities to the forefront and let those be what they lead with. Um, Another thing people can do is develop an attitude of gratitude. It sounds like a cliche, but it really works. If you wake up every morning and write down three things that you're grateful for, it could be very simple things, doesn't have to be earth shaking. Um, for me, at my age, one of the things I'm grateful for is when I wake up in the morning and nothing hurts. That, that's I think I got a chance to have a pretty good day. It could be, you see a beautiful sunrise. Your puppy comes and licks your face in the morning. Really, I mean, really simplify it down. But if you start to develop that habit of feeling grateful for what you have instead of feeling discontented by what you don't have, then that's a great step in developing that acceptance that I think is so important.
I love the answer. And I can see why social media would be a negative based on all the positive things that you outlined. Because the first thing is obviously physical activity is the opposite of someone staring at a screen. And, being grateful for what you have is the opposite of someone saying, you could have this if only you were better. So I sort of understand the dislike of social media based on the things that are actually good for human beings. Is that a good interpretation?
I think that's a great interpretation. I couldn't have said that better.
Okay. Glad I'm going in the right direction with that. You've said about sort of self-care, self-acceptance, and gratitude. One, I love the practice of waking up, writing down three things you're grateful for. But I do feel of all the things which perhaps are good for the human being, I think the habit of gratitude is probably one of the more difficult things. So for people who are struggling with perhaps that personality shift of going from someone who's not particularly grateful to someone who practices gratitude. Is there any other thoughts or tips that you have?
Well, you mentioned it. It's really a mind shift, and it requires, like any area in which you're trying to improve or change yourself, it's going to be difficult at first. It's going to feel uncomfortable. For example, I mentioned physical activity. If you're not in the habit of walking very much, and you decide that you're going to start a regimen of walking every day, maybe the first day you can only go a quarter of a mile, and but that's better than nothing. It's a first step. But the secret is to take the first step. And then after you take the first step, take the next step. I mean, you don't have to do it all at once. And I think that's where a lot of people uh, fall back into their old habits when they try to form a new habit all at one time. And it's very difficult to do, if not impossible. If you just take it step by step, you have a chance to change your behavior and change the attitudes that go along with those behaviors over time. For example, I'm a big believer in positive self-talk. Say good things about yourself to yourself. You don't have to say it, announce it to the world. But if you start, people have a tendency to be self-critical. Oh, I'm not good at this, or I can't do this, I can't do that. People don't like me. Start start saying good things about yourself. I'm a terrific person. I'm really good at this. I love to do that. I'm a good writer. I'm a good speaker. I'm a good mother. I'm a good father. I'm a good golfer. Whatever. Say good things about yourself to yourself every day. And sometimes it might sound like you're faking it till you make it or believing your own bullshit, but if you do it over time, it becomes the truth. You can reprogram your mind. You can rewire yourself into thinking more positively about yourself. And if you think well of yourself and you believe in what you have to offer and believe in your strengths, then you're better able to challenge or to take on whatever challenge comes your way because the challenges are going to be there regardless. Every life has challenges. But if you approach it with the attitude of I can do this, as opposed to the oh my God, I'm doomed, you got a much better chance of getting a better outcome.
100% agree and totally on the same page. For whatever reason, I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are on. You said that we have a tendency to be critical of ourselves, and
Yes.
as a psychologist, the interesting thought that came to me was just why? Why is it that we tend to lean towards that way, and then we have to, or it's beneficial to program ourselves out of that? Why is it that you think that is?
Well, I think the reason we have a tendency to become self-critical is because the people around us are making it easy for us to be critical of ourselves because they're being critical of us. We often get at from very early ages, we often get a lot more negative feedback than we get positive feedback. And if most of what you're getting is negative feedback, it's easy to start believing that about yourself because incidents are going to happen along the way that are going to confirm that negative information that you're getting. And often the positive things that happen are discounted. They don't have as much weight. They don't carry as much weight. So not everybody, but often people are programmed from an early age to only look at the critical, the negative, what they need to improve on, not what they're good at. And I think if people were given more positive feedback and encouragement, that would lead to a better self-image and less of a tendency to be self-critical. And it's
So,
in some. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, just I was just about to summarize my interpretation of that. If it were the case that you have particularly positive parents who were giving you good feedback and they were encouraging you as much as they was reasonable, it's much more likely that that person's going to grow up and not be self-critical. Is that fair?
I think they're less likely to be self-critical. But some people, it's just their nature to always want to strive to be better, to do better. And in order to strive to do better and to be better, you have to take an assessment of yourself of where you are now. And that forces you to be a little bit critical of yourself. If you were perfect in every way, there'd be no reason for you to want to improve, right? So, so you have to be realistic in your criticism and realistic in your self-assessment. And a person who's realistic in their self-assessment has a good understanding of both their strengths and their weaknesses. And they people who are happier and more contented and more joyful tend to focus on their strengths more than their weaknesses. They focus on what they're good at and what they enjoy rather than constantly focusing on what they're not good at.
Well, we've covered it a little bit, and I think that this is one from your profile which I'm interested in, and it's around goal setting and why more people don't do it. We've got something to share there.
Sure, I think the reason people don't set, there's two reasons people don't set goals. One, they're not taught to set goals when they're young. There should, I think, in every elementary school in the world, there should be a class on setting goals. And we're not taught it. The second thing is really there's three. The second thing is so we don't know how. We're not taught it. We don't know how. And three, it requires discipline, self-discipline. In other words, if you set a goal and they have to be clear, measurable, they have to have a time frame. The goal setting is a very specific process. And if done well, you can accomplish some great things, depending on what your goals are. But it requires you to be consistent and it requires you to recognize which tasks are leading you toward those goals and which tasks are leading you either away from those goals or not contributing to you achieving those goals. So it requires a level of self-discipline that I don't think a lot of people have today.
I do want to follow up, but I always ask, I tend to ask this question just because I struggle with it myself. So, in terms of a goal, sort of presupposes you know what you want, right? So, you're trying to achieve a particular thing. And if you are struggling with what is it that you are supposed to achieve, or perhaps deciding for yourself what that is, um, how would you go about doing that in your view?
Well, sometimes sometimes you have to take a broader view and say, what do I want this aspect of my life to look like? What would that involve? Just kind of do a little mental picture of the outcome, the end result. And if you can't get to the end result, then there's no point in setting a goal to help you get to that point if you don't know what that point is. So I think you have to, Stephen Covey in his book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, said, begin with the end in mind. You have to look at where you want to end up and then what steps along the way do I need to take to end up where I want to end up. So if you're really struggling with goal setting, maybe it's a good idea to really sit down and reflect. And if you need some help with that, if you a coach can help with that, sometimes a therapist can help with that. Sometimes just a good friend, a mentor, business associate can help with that. What do I want my professional life to look like? What do I want my personal life to look like? What do I want to be overcome to get to a point that I want to get to? Something simple as if I want to lose 30 pounds. So you have to ask yourself, how is it going to benefit me to lose 30 pounds? What's my life going to look like if I lose 30 pounds? And then work backwards from that. And if your life when you lose 30 pounds isn't going to be any different in your mind or any better, then why do it? So so you really have to be clear on how what your life's going to feel like, what it's going to look like, and what it's going to feel like when you achieve that goal.
Sort of like a what do I want my average day to be? Is that kind of what you mean?
Sure. Well, you can break it down into your average day. What's a good day look like? What needs to happen in that day for me to consider it a good day? And yeah, those daily goals are important in that they can help you on your way to achieving broader long-term goals because all you can do today is what you can do today. I mean, you can't go 6 weeks out today. All you can do is a certain amount. But if that's either going to lead you toward that goal or it's going to distract you or make it harder for you to achieve that goal.
Okay. That makes it a little bit easier to start setting our goals. So let's say someone thinks about what they want their life to look like, and you've got an idea about the the most effective way to set goals. What's that activity look like?
Well, that activity, it looks like breaking down all of the things that need to happen for you to achieve that goal, breaking down the behaviors that you need to do. That all we can do is behaviors, right? Break down those behaviors into small, measurable, achievable steps. Because if you set a grand goal and don't break it down into what do I need, what's the next thing that I need to do to get me closer to that goal, it can get overwhelming in a hurry. So you just have to break it down. And if I want to get there, what's the next thing I need to do? After you do that, then what's the next thing I need to do? Break it down into simple, measurable, achievable steps so that you don't get yourself discouraged and overwhelmed.
I did need to hear this actually because at the moment I'm trying to achieve something. I do feel myself looking out into the future at the big thing rather than, as you say, the everyday behaviors that get you that little step closer. So I appreciate your input on it. In
Oh,
terms
what
of
can I say one thing? Can I say one thing
go
real
for it.
quick?
Yeah.
Write everything down. Write your goals down, write the steps you've taken that day to get towards your goal, write them down because the act of writing something down kind of burns it into your brain.
Okay. So yeah, I've heard it said that it creates space between you and your thoughts rather than kind of, wood through the trees type thing. And
Yep,
yeah, it kind of gives you some perspective when you've got it down on paper. So yeah, totally agree with that. I follow up just generally speaking, you help with counseling people or therapy, is that right?
I do not. I'm not a therapist. I'm a
Okay.
coach. And there is a difference. Um, Therapists have a tendency to focus on past traumas to explain person's current situation or past. So they go toward the past first to explain why a person within the hope that that understanding will help them to overcome whatever it is they're dealing with at that particular time. A coach has a much more forward focus and coach like myself will focus on specific areas that a person would like to improve.
Well, believe it or not, it actually doesn't change the follow-up, which is have you got any examples that you're proud of where you've implemented this type of information and you've helped someone and they've been better for it?
Oh, sure. One of my recent clients uh, he's in a leadership position in a big organization and found that he was his performance in his mind, his performance was being negatively impacted by the fact that at certain times he would just emotionally not be able to contain himself when he saw something stupid or that shouldn't be done being done. Um, and the way he expressed it was really counterproductive. He kind of went on a rant. And uh, one of the reasons he came to me wanting coaching was he recognized that he couldn't get to the level that he wanted to get to. He wanted to be a CEO at some point. And he recognized that although he couldn't really articulate it when we started, there was something about his behavior that was keeping him from advancing the way he wanted to advance. And it took uh, a few sessions for us to really pinpoint what were the triggers that led to those outbursts that he was having. And once we identified what the triggers were, then we took together, we worked on what can we do to recognize those triggers and what behaviors can we use to replace the angry outbursts that and over a 3 or 4 month period of time, that was one thing we were working on. He was able to give me some examples of where he took what we were working on into the workplace, and a situation occurred where 6 months ago he would have just exploded. And at that time, he just didn't. He handled it in a totally different way. He asked questions. He did a little deep breathing and counted to 10 in his head. Simple things, but for him, it's something he wasn't doing before that he is doing now. And it really had, uh, he's since been promoted, not to CEO, but the next level down. Uh, so that's an example of something that worked very well. Another example is I was helping somebody with their career. They were having some career issues, and over 3 or 4 months. It takes a while. You can't build a cathedral overnight. Um, he made a decision that he was going to change jobs to work for a company that provided him a little bit better. I don't like to use the word work-life balance. I like to use the word work-life integration. A little better work-life integration, and decided to go to graduate school. He's going to get an MBA, uh, and was going to re take up a hobby that he kind of put by the wayside for several years. That he's going to take it back up because it provided him the kind of not only internal satisfaction, joy, if you will, but it allowed him to get his family involved in that activity as well, um, that he wasn't doing. So those are just a couple of recent examples.
Well, that's nice to hear. Thank you for sharing them. And if people are interested in the coaching or they want to buy the book, where do they go?
Okay, can I show the book? Is that allowed?
Go for
It's
it.
my book. Yeah. They can get it on Amazon. They can get it on Audible. I went in the studio, did an audio version of it. They can go to my website, angelovalenti.com, and buy it there. They can get a signed copy if they'd like. If you buy it from my website, I'll throw in the workbook, how to find your personal easy way to enjoy life for free. Um, if they want coaching, again, they can go to angelovalenti.com. Or if you want to book a discovery call, you can go to reachangelo.com and book a time, and we'll talk about how we might be able to work together.
Well, I can certainly see how it would be beneficial based on your answers today. I've really enjoyed listening to you. And Angelo, thank you for being a great guest today.
Thank you so much. A lot of fun.